Humans have a 2D retina. So when we're looking in a three-dimensional world, we'll see points in the 3D world that'll get projected through the lens in our eyeball and projected against our two-dimensional retina. Now, often in computer graphics, we draw it this way with a focal point and then a plane in front, and then the 3D world points there getting projected through, and we project it on this plane here. You'll notice it's kind of flipped, but you may have heard that the retina gets a flipped image. And so, although I didn't draw this quite accurately with these lines, the image projected on this plane is exactly the same as this one, except for flipped. So, as long as these distances are equal. So it's simple to put the plane here, to do the math and think about it, because we can move this back and forth and such. So we have the computer graphics puts the plane in front of the focal point usually. Now in 4D, I imagine a four-dimensional being would have a three-dimensional retina. Now it could be a sphere, just like in the 2D case, our eyeball retinas are probably circle or circular. Well, they're curved also. But in the computer graphics, we usually use a rectangle because our computer screens are rectangles, so it's convenient to do that. In the 4D case, just like it could be a circle or a rectangle, it could be a sphere or a cube or a rectangular prism. And similarly, we've got points out in the 4D world space, and we're gonna and we have a focal point and kind of a view direction, which direction we're looking. And then these points we're going to project onto this three-dimensional retina. And that's how we're removing one dimension. So that's how we get it down to 3 dimensions. Now, one thing that occurred to me is, why is this a point? Why, if you think of this three-dimensional thing, it could intersect at more than just a point. It doesn't, because if you look back at the 3D case, how could this ray from this focal point to that point intercept with this plane in more than a point? And it couldn't, because this point is behind this plane. The only way we could intersect with more than a point was if it was parallel and in the plane. But since we have a point in front of it and behind it, it's going to be a point all the time. 4D ends up being analogous. It's the same thing, because we have the focal point behind the 3D retina and the points somewhere else. It's always going to intersect exactly at one point. Now, in this case, we're only losing one dimension, so we still have this three-dimensional set of points and images and model. In order to get it so it's visible, we have to do yet another projection, which is the 3D projection. So first we have to take the 4D and move it down to 3D, and then we have to take the 3D and move it down to 2D. Now, the nature of this means we're losing some information. What is often done in the three-dimensional world is we have a three-dimensional projection. I'm sorry, a perspective projection. There's perspective, orthogonal. There's a few different kinds of projections we can do. The one drawn here is a perspective, because you can see that the farther away something is, you can see the distance kind of here. Well, there's a distance here is less. So the further away something is, the smaller it's going to appear. And so we kind of are able to capture some of the information that we lose, the distance, the z-axis, in order by doing a perspective projection. We can do the same thing in 4 dimensions. And this is the approach I took, is the further away it is, we do the projection here, and it's going to appear smaller inside this three-dimensional retina. So that gives us But then we have to now move up to the 3D case, right? So we have to take this three-dimensional retina and make it visible on the screen. And that gets a little tricky. Because how we do that, the viewpoint here is because we're wandering around in a four-dimensional world, and this is where our four-dimensional being has his eye. But when we're going to project this 3D back into a 2D plane, we can actually look at this three-dimensional retina from any direction, and so we can just choose one. Or we can do some creative things to make it visible. Because the challenge here is I wouldn't want to do a perspective projection of this 3D retina into the 2D screen, because then things would appear smaller even though they aren't farther away. And I want to keep that, farther away equals smaller. I think we're used to that, and that's a reasonable way of capturing that information. So we have to do something else in order to project this onto there. Right now I'm just doing a simple orthographic projection. But there are other techniques that I have explored and that I'm going to explore with that side of things.